Black Prospector is coming with one today. What do y'all know about Thalamus Rasulala? Rasulala. The dad from What's Happening. All right, Black Prospector coming at you from Every Black Man Has a Story. And today I'm going to tell you about a story about another black man in cinema, in Hollywood, and entertainment that had an impact on my life. As a dad at 19 years old, watching What's Happening, y'all know Good Times. Check out my series on Good Times, James Evans, the impact that he had on my life. But there was another dad out there that when I became a father, because What's Happening was my second favorite show of all of them, especially kind of from that Norman Lear tree. But What's Happening was the one that when I saw the father there be a stepfather to Raj and to Dee, that was something I could relate to. Because at that young age, now I was moving into a role of single fatherhood. But there were also some things that frustrated me with all of that as well. And I'm going to get into that in a moment. So if you like this video today, feel free to like, subscribe, share, check out some of my other stories on Every Black Man Has a Story. And let's dig into this fascinating story about a guy, especially for my Gen Xers out there, especially for black folks who watch a lot of blaxploitation films and know all the black sitcoms. You know this guy, but you probably didn't know him by name, and you probably didn't know how to pronounce his name. Let's get into it. All right, so let's go and talk about my man, Thalamus Rasulala, or Thalamus Rasulala. Now, I've struggled so often to pronounce his name. One of my boys, my boy Mark, that was on the Good Times episode where we talked about Good Times and All in the Family, was always giving me grief. And I mean no disrespect to the family and friends of Thalmus, because certainly being able to pronounce a person's last name is important. But he was actually born Jack Crowder on November 15, 1939. And he was really one of those groundbreaking Black American actors, and his career spanned theater, television, and film. Now, he's known for his kind of commanding presence and versatility and the ability to portray a wide range of characters. And when we talk about that range, I have to say, the range to me that, we're going to take a look at some of the photos and some of the things that he's done. But that range could go from being in Roots, but it can also go to Cool Breeze, where, and to me, that's what really signifies who Thalmus was and who he played. It's the fact that he played characters, but they were often along that side of the paradigm that were very positive for black men. This guy always kind of had that, we'll go to my Gen Xers again, black folks, that Billy D vibe, where Thalmus was putting himself out there kind of as a black sex symbol. And that he wasn't just, kind of some grimy black dude that was out there during the 70s or during the 60s or even during the 80s. He always had a sophisticated flair to him. And of course, that even had an impact on me again, because now as a man that's single, got my own spot, I want my house to be clean. A woman come over here, I want her to have that pressure that my crib is just, excuse me, I don't live in the crib. Babies live in the crib. I live in the King's Palace. All right, let me get that right. Sometimes, even the black vernacular gets me a bit. But in my palace, I want her to see that what she's stepping into can be just as neat, if not neater, than what she has at home. And if any of you all know, and you've been to enough women's house, you probably know that that's really not hard to do, gentlemen. It's really not hard to do. But the main point is when I watched that Roger's dad on What's Happening, when he would go see his father, and despite his father taking all kind of shade from Maple King, from mom, his place was often immaculate. Dude had that bachelor pad going on. So much so that he didn't mind Roger and Dee coming over. And that's definitely what I wanted my house to look like. So again, that's that versatility in there. But let me get back to it. Now, Rasulala made significant contributions and representation of black actors in Hollywood during the 1970s and the 1980s. His work on popular television shows, like I mentioned, already on What's Happening. But y'all know, why do I have this connection? Why is he here? Because he was also on Good Times. It cemented his legacy as a beloved figure in black entertainment. So what we're going to look at, we're going to explore his life, his career, his notable roles, and in particular, the focus on his contribution to those two big iconic sitcoms in my life. Now, early on in his career, Thalmus was born in Miami, Florida, and grew up at a time when opportunities for black actors were limited. Despite these challenges, he pursued his passion for acting, studying theater and performing in various stage productions. Now, he adopted the name Thalamus Rasulala early in his career, a decision that reflected his desire to embrace his cultural heritage and to stand out in the entertainment industry. Rasulala's early career included roles in blaxploitation films, a genre that emerged in the 1970s and featured predominantly black casts. He gained recognition for his performances in films such as What Y'all Know About Blackula? What do y'all know about Blackula? In 1972, where he portrayed Dr. Gordon Thomas, and Cool Breeze in 1972. Now, that one always stood out to me because that's what I used to call my son, Cool Breeze. And I have a cousin that we call Breeze. So that, to me, is just always the ultimate nickname right there. But these roles showcase his ability to balance gravitas and charisma, making him a standout performer in his genre. Now, his role on Good Times. This is it right here. Good Times aired from 1974 to 1979. It's hard to believe it was only 5 years. And it was a groundbreaking sitcom that depicted the struggles and triumphs of a black family in Chicago housing project. Really, most said it represented Cabrini Green. The show was celebrated for its humor, social commentary, and portrayal of black life in America. So Thalmus had an appearance on that show as well. Now, sometimes the internet says that he played Carl Dixon, a love interest for Florida Evans, and that's not true. That was Moses Gunn. That was not Thalamus Rasulala. So if you see that on the internet, that is false. So while he did not have a major contribution on Good Times, his appearance on that show, where he showed up as James's friend, and it was his old gambling buddy. And he had a little problem, and like we all had that friend. If you watch that episode, Thalmus even then kind of sat back and, he was just kind of had this, I'm a bachelor, I'm out here having fun, I'm living life. And, James was like, yeah, I'm kind of married and working at the car wash and getting laid off constantly and got a son that's always stealing and getting in trouble. And I got a lovely wife here, and that's good. I got a family, but man, you living that good life. But what he didn't realize is that my man was out there gambling. And he was losing everything. And here it is, his best friend comes back in James's life. And he's thinking like, man, we can finally catch up. And it's so good to see you. But turns out people were looking for him. And they were going to kill him for his gambling debts. And so he ends up stealing some antique salt and pepper shakers that belonged to Florida, that were valuable. And the Evans family didn't have many valuable items, besides probably James's or JJ's paintings. But he ended up saying, if they mean more to you and you know what they mean to my family, then take them. And the episode ends where we see that a person with addiction can't help themselves. And what did he do? Well, go watch the episode. Spoiler alert. I'll never forget, he went and he put them in his pocket and he walked on out the door. Let me take a side note to talk about folks who've dealt with some people with addictions. Sometimes you just hope that they'll put that down and they'll make that choice and say, you know what, I will go ahead. I know what it means to you, so I'm going to put this down. So later on in life, you kind of learn some things. And later on in your own experiences in life, you're probably going to have some people that won't put those salt and pepper shakers down, because the love that they have for the addiction, whether it's gambling, whether it's going to be some form of drug, alcohol, or whatever it is, the love that they have for that addiction far exceeds the love that they actually have for you and that they can't help themselves. So there's your little Black Prospector PSA. But you can find more of my thoughts on things like that on my channel, The Prospector's Way. But back to it. All right. So his role on What's Happening, which aired from 1976 to 1979, was a sitcom centered around the lives of three teenage friends navigating adolescence in LA. The show was known for its humor and relatable characters and portrayal of Black youth culture. And of course, Eric Monti played a role. It was based on Cooley High. That's really where a lot of the ideas of What's Happening came from. I'm going to do a video in the future on Eric Monti, what happened to him, how he got played. You can probably check that out. I bring that up on my discussions about James Evans and Good Times for sure. When Thalmus was on Good Times, he actually played two roles. Now, I think, again, he was most known for the one where he played Oscar Harris and he came back. But there was another time where he even kind of played a little bit of a love interest of Florida Evans. And that's something that we saw often on many of the Black sitcoms, where the characters would show up as recurring. And it's like, that dude kind of looks familiar. And that's because they often appeared in other episodes in other seasons. But that goes to show, number one, perhaps how few black actors there were in Hollywood that there were to choose from, especially at that level. And often they wanted to probably keep them on the show. They knew the kind of work that they could do. And if you have any more even insight into that know Hollywood better than I do, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. But it's often a trip at how they would often keep recurring and coming back, especially during the Norman Lear sitcoms. And it's like, wait a minute, this person looks familiar again. And it's almost like we forgot that they were on another season. So Thalmus also appeared on other sitcoms such as Sanford and Son, and we'll get to the long list of his Hollywood career pretty soon. But overall, he was known for his ability to play complex characters with dignity and humanity. And he often took roles that challenged the stereotypes and showcased the diversity of the black experiences. His work helped pave a way for future generations of black actors in Hollywood. Now, here's where it really is kind of a trip. Thalamus Rasulala passed away on October 9, 1991, at the age of 51, leaving behind a legacy of groundbreaking work of entertainment. His contributions to television and film during a time of significant social change were instrumental in expanding the representation of black actors on the screen. Now, Rasulala's roles on Good Times and What's Happening remain memorable highlights of his career. Through his performances, he brought depth, humor, and authenticity to his characters, resonating with audiences, leaving a lasting impact on popular culture. That brother can act. He could act. And overall, when we look at his life, Thalmus was a trailblazing actor, and his work in television and film helped redefine the portrayal of black characters in black media. Now, his roles in Good Time and What's Happening were showcased. They showcase his versatility, his talent, making him a beloved figure in the world of sitcoms. While his career was cut short, his contributions continue to inspire and influence actors and audiences alike. Thalamus Rasulala's legacy is a testament to the power of representation and the enduring impact of meaningful storytelling. Now, what's really weird, or sometimes the way fate just had it, is that Thalmus's death was 2 days before that of actor Redd Foxx, who died of a heart attack and whom guest starred on Sanford and Son. So Thalmus was on Sanford and Son, and here it is, he dies 2 days before Redd Foxx, who, for those who don't know, and I have to remember I got some younger people out there, Redd Foxx was the man behind Sanford and Son. He was Fred G. Sanford. And here it is, both he and Redd Foxx depart from this earth with heart attacks, just 2 days separated from each other. When we look overall at the life of Thalmus and what he did, and certainly his contributions, well, let's just say to say he was in just a handful of movies is truly an understatement. The long list of movies that he was in is just exhausting. So I'm just going to touch on some of the ones that just span decades of his career. You have General Hospital. He was on there in the late 80s and the early 90s. He was on Dragnet as well. He was in New Jack City. He was Police Commissioner Fred Prince. He was on a series called Generations in the 90s. He was on Star Trek New Generation for an episode as Captain Donald Varley. He was even on a CBS school break special as Marshall Cook. He was on 227 in 1988 as Ben Chadway. He was in the movie with Steven Seagal, Above the Law, as Deputy Sergeant Crowder. Taking his last name. He was using his actual last name. He was on Simon and Simon, the old TV show, for a couple of episodes. He was on Highway to Heaven, if everybody remember Michael Langdon, in 1986. He even made his appearance back in What's Happening Now in 1986, returning back as Bill Thomas. Then we go down to Cagney and Lacey for an episode, 1985. T.J. Hooker in 1984 and 85 for a couple of episodes. Blue Thunder. American Playhouse, The Greatest American Hero. He was in there as Victor Sosha. He was on The Incredible Hulk in 1979 as Deputy Chief Harry Simon. Movie The Bermuda Triangle in 1979. Lou Grant, and for one episode in 1978. Kojak in 1977 for a couple of episodes as the Chief of Detectives. And he was on The Jeffersons as Kurt Hendricks in 1977. And of course, The Richard Pryor Show in 1977 as Richard's friend. He was on Roots in 1977. I already mentioned Good Times as Oscar Harris and has Ernie Harris. He was on Cornbread, Earl, and Me. And that gives you a hint to another black father that I'm going to talk about who was also on Cornbread, Earl, and Me. And if you know who that is, and if you know the reason why the Black Prospector is going to feature him as one of my black dads that impacted my life, let me know that in the comment below. That's going to be a little bit of trivia I'm going to come back to. And, you know, again, it goes on and on and on and on. The Rookies, Blackula, Cool Breeze, All in the Family back in 1971 as Mr. Bird. One Life to Live. This man did soap operas. He did The Twilight Zone in 1964. But it was his role in What's Happening that had the most impact on my life. Bill Thalmus was a guy who, as I said, looking at how that man lived his life and looking at him always trying to be involved in Roger and Dee's life, I look back at that now and it's like, wow, how prophetic this was of what they were showing us in the script writing that I didn't even understand as a kid. Here it is, you had Bill Thalmus. And if you all remember, Mabel used to kind of talk sideways about Bill. There were so many things that were apart that we later on would see. First of all, we would see the black woman being with this black guy, and you know, she was a little bit bigger than he was. But yet, at one time, he still loved her. And they had issues with him being faithful to her, at least so she said. And I guess that was something he admitted to in some episodes. And then the other women he got with were a little bit smaller and different than Mabel. But he still went back to raise his kids. He still went back to be with them and have his visitation with them. And here was, Dee treated him the worst. Where Roger always looked at it, hey, this is our father, and he may not have always done everything right, but this is our dad. Dee, on the other hand, was a lot less forgiving. She always had that attitude, and she would sit there and he would hold her up and she just would look mean and wouldn't want to give him a kiss. And for those who know, wasn't that also an indication of to what many families will go through today? How prophetic was that? Especially for a man himself who would go through some quote unquote baby mama drama, that it was being portrayed even on a 1970s sitcom, where he had this interplay between him and Mabel and the struggles that they had parenting, where certainly the attitude and the kind of feelings that Dee had toward her dad, no doubt had to relate to some of the things that mom had said about dad. But you don't pick up on that game when you're watching this, and I'm 7, 8, 9 years old. You don't get it. And that's why I'm so glad Thalmus brought that to the screen. Because now I get to go back, and just as with James Evans, I get to go back and see myself. I at least have, and this is why the black representation of having a positive black representation, not having a black man in a dress, having a black man saying, I'm going to be a man. And that even when things don't necessarily go the way I want them to in life, this is how I carry myself. It has an impact on our psyche. So if we go to what Neely Fuller Jr. often said, is that many times the only black representation that we can have on television is that which is tacky, trashy, or terroristic. And then you look at where we are in our world today, and we talk about how bad people are, how bad these folks are out here. Well, look at what has been portrayed out there in entertainment. Go back and watch the movie Hollywood Shuffle that Robert Townsend did to kind of show us that this is what black actors, they were given those roles in order to reflect this back to us as black folks, and that would influence our behavior. So thank you to Thalmus for having a body of work where he often portrayed himself that even if they had in the script that, okay, for you to have this role, you're the stepfather. And from what one of my viewers, thank you so much, commented even on Good Times, and this is one of the reasons why I had the idea to do this video. Thank you, because they mentioned that Mabel King didn't want to be a single mother with what's happening either. And we know what happened. Go again, check out my video on Good Times. Norman Lear won that battle with James Evans by getting him off the show. But they started from day one with what's happening by making Mabel a single mother. But at least, thankfully, Thalmus brought some representation of a father that wanted to be in his kid's life, even if he didn't get along with the mother, even if mom had made some comments about the kids, even if he made some mistakes, he was still there to give money when he could. It showed episodes where he was trying to date. Here it is, he's out here trying to date, and they kind of getting mad that, well, mom alone, because we never saw Mabel with anyone else really. And yet dad was rebuilding and going on with his life. That's real life. That's what was happening brought to us in many ways. That's certainly what good times brought to us all the time. Real life. And that's why it impacted me. What about you? I'm thankful old Bill Thomas, aka Thalamus Rasulala. I'm thankful for the role that he had. I'm thankful for the role that he had on impacting me and kind of giving me some hope that even in my mid-50s, I'm able to look back at what's happening and say, I want to have me a tight place like Bill had, that it looks good and I don't have to be a dirty bachelor. No, ladies, you're not going to come and use my bathroom and find, urine all over the floor and stuff like that, Yeah. I know that's what y'all used to. And yes, I do put the toilet seat down if a woman's around. I'm good like that. Just because I'm nice to my guest, not because I'm simping. All right, but that's enough. Again, check out the Prospector's Way for that kind of game. We're not going to put it out here. Thank you for joining. Let me know your favorite Thalamus Rasulala role, moment, movie, sitcom. What did you like about him? When you saw his face, did you I recognize that guy now? Did you know the body of work that he had put together? Props to him. I salute Thalmus. And until next time, be ready for the next dad where we highlight that every black man has a story, whether it's the black men in our everyday lives, but even there's a story behind the celebrity black man that impacts our lives. And until next time, go your own way, be a prospector that blazes your own path. I'm out.